Brought to you by Thomas Allgaier and Frannis. This edition highlights key LinkedIn posts on next-gen vehicle intelligence in weeks 5 and 6. Frannis supports automotive enterprises and consultancies with market and competitive intelligence, decoding disruptive technologies, customer needs, regulatory change, and competitive moves so product teams and strategy leaders don't just react, but shape the future of mobility.
You know, that phrase, shaping the future, always sounds so aspirational.
A little bit, yeah.
But looking at the chatter from the last couple of weeks, it feels like the industry is finding out that shaping the future is just really hard work.
It's definitely less dreaming and more engineering right now.
Yeah.
If I had to put a label on what we saw in weeks 5 and 6 of 2026, I'd say we've moved from the PowerPoint phase into maybe the panic phase.
Or the execution phase, if we're being polite.
Right, the execution phase.
Execution panic might be the most accurate term,
Yeah,
actually.
right.
We are seeing this massive reality check. All the glossy presentations about software-defined vehicles, the SDVs, they're gone.
And now?
Now it's the engineers and the accountants staring at the incredible mess involved in actually building them.
And it's a mess that touches everything. We're seeing these deep organizational fractures, a massive trust gap with consumers around AI, and, a sales landscape that is just punishing anyone who gets it wrong.
It's the hangover after the hype. So we have 3 big themes to get into today. First, that internal struggle, the operating models, and why the org chart is basically killing innovation.
Okay.
Second, the big pivot to AI and this growing trust gap. And finally, a really brutal look at the market dynamics, from Tesla's slump to the strange new geopolitics of manufacturing.
Let's start inside the building then. For the last few years, the narrative was so simple. We are becoming tech companies.
Right. We just need to hire more software engineers.
Exactly. Just hire enough coders and you'll magically turn into a Silicon Valley giant.
Yeah.
But looking at a post from Augustin Friedel, that whole theory seems dead on arrival.
It is. He made a very sharp point. The bottleneck isn't talent anymore. Not really. The OEMs know how to recruit smart people.
So what's the problem?
The problem is the operating model. You can't just bolt a fast-moving software team onto a rigid, 100-year-old manufacturing hierarchy and, expect magic to happen.
So it's the difference between who is doing the work and how the work actually gets done. Friedel mentioned struggles with funding, governance, accountability.
And structural stuff. It sounds like they have the players, but they're trying to play a completely different game.
So what's the new strategy?
Well, Friedel notes a shift. It used to be, we will build everything ourselves. Now, because those models are failing, it's shifting to, we need to own the control points.
Meaning you don't have to write every single line of code.
Exactly. But you absolutely must own the data loops and the big compute choices. That's the key.
And this connects directly to what Frank Pensnick was arguing. He brought up Conway's Law. I feel like this comes up every single time we talk about legacy auto trying to do software.
Because it's the fundamental law of the universe for them. Conway's Law basically states that your software architecture will always end up mirroring your organizational structure.
So if your organization is full of silos, engine team here, chassis team there, infotainment over there, you get siloed software. Pensnick argues these companies are still structured like factories, rigid handovers, clear hierarchies, but software needs to be fluid. And if you try to build an agile software stack inside that rigid factory org chart,
you fail. You just get spaghetti code that doesn't talk to itself.
But even if you could fix the org chart, the sheer scope of the work seems to be drowning people. I saw that visual from Vinicius to design of the iceberg.
Oh, I loved that. It's so accurate for the budget meetings that must be happening right now.
Explain it for us.
The car, the thing you touch, the screens, the apps, that's just the tip. Maybe 10% of the whole thing.
And the other 90% is?
Below the waterline. It's the validation, the simulation, compliance, and all the OTA, the over-the-air infrastructure.
So Zion's point is that the industry has been obsessed with polishing that tiny tip of the iceberg while ignoring the massive, massive chunk of ice underwater.
And that's where the cost explosion is coming from. If you don't build that underwater infrastructure correctly, none of the shiny features on top actually work. You can't just patch a car like you patch an app. The validation tail is enormous.
We actually saw 2 very different ways of tackling this iceberg problem this week. On one hand, you've got BMW. Simon Terres gave us a look at the new class.
That's the clean sheet approach. BMW is basically ripping out all the old wiring. They're moving to centralized compute, getting rid of dozens and dozens of little ECUs and separating the hardware life cycles from the software ones.
It's a huge bet.
It's an existential bet on a completely new platform.
Now, compare that to the update on Volkswagen from Raul Arredondo. They're launching something called the China Electronic Architecture, or CEA.
And that's, well, it's a really fascinating contrast, isn't it? VW is effectively admitting that they can't solve the iceberg problem fast enough in Germany.
So they're developing this architecture in China for China.
But it's not just for China. That's the key.
The goal is what? Speed.
Speed. Arredondo says they're using this to cut development time by 30%. They're essentially importing innovation velocity from the East back into their global stack. It's a huge sign that the center of gravity for how to build car software has shifted.
A humbling moment for the German engineers, I'm sure. But just as these companies are figuring out software-defined vehicles, the goalposts are already moving. Dr. Gabriel Seiberth and Mahbub Alam are saying software-defined is already outdated.
Yeah, they're pushing this concept of the AIDV, the AI-defined vehicle.
Is this just rebranding? I mean, everything is AI now.
I don't think so. Not in this case. In a standard SDV, a human writes code that says, if X happens, then do Y. It's rule-based.
Right.
In an AIDV, the AI isn't just a feature like voice command. It becomes the runtime decision layer. It's making judgment calls in real time about how the car behaves.
Which sounds amazing for performance, but it brings us straight to our second big theme, trust. Because if the car is making judgment calls, I need to know why it made that call.
That is the multi-billion-dollar question. And we saw a really insightful report from BCG and Bosch, which was shared by Mark Brunson, Christopher Dennell, and Dennis Rabe. They surveyed thousands of drivers. The results were pretty stark.
This is the trust gap.
It's huge.
The one stat that really jumped out at me was that over 60% of users said they need to know what the driver assistance system is doing.
Right now, they don't. Most drivers are using trial and error to figure out if their car sees the lane lines or the car ahead.
Which is just incredibly dangerous. I hope the car sees that truck is not a safety strategy.
Not at all. And the report highlighted that phantom braking, where the car just slams on the brakes for no apparent reason, absolutely destroys trust. The moment that happens, people just turn the feature off for good.
So adoption isn't about how many features you can list on a spec sheet. It's about whether the driver can understand the machine. But you can't just display lines of code on the dashboard.
No, but you can give them reasoning. And this is where a post from Daniel L. about NVIDIA becomes so relevant. He talked about their new toolkit, Alpamayo.
Right, this is the thinking out loud feature.
Exactly. NVIDIA released this AI toolkit for autonomous vehicles, and the key differentiator is that you can literally read its log file to see its reasoning.
The example he gave was brilliant. Instead of the car just braking, the system logs something like, I see a leash, but I don't see a dog. The dog might be behind that parked car. I should probably slow down.
And that is the bridge across the trust gap. That is reasoning. It's not just if red light, then stop. It's contextual. And if a car can communicate that kind of logic to the driver, maybe not in text, but through the interface, you stop thinking of it as a glitchy machine and start trusting it.
But proving that logic is safe must be a nightmare. Yeltsin Parlak raised this whole issue around validation. Everyone's talking about end-to-end AI, where you just feed data in one end and get driving out the other.
Right.
But how do you validate a feeling or context?
You can't. You can't write a test script for it. With the old rule-based code, you can test every single if-then statement. With a neural network, it's a black box. You can't easily prove it won't do something totally crazy in a specific situation.
Which is why Mohammed Al-Khazendar's work on explainable AI is so critical. We have to be able to open that black box. But, while the engineers are fighting with that, the regulators have surprisingly stepped up.
Which is rare. Usually regulation lags technology by a decade. But this week we saw a massive move. Bas van den Heuvel and Alex Kendall shared the news about the new UN regulation.
Oh yeah, the catchy title. Global Technical Regulation for Automated Driving Systems.
It doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, but it is so important. It applies to level 3 automation and up, and it sets a clear, harmonized safety benchmark. The system must be at least as safe as a competent human driver.
Competent human driver seems like a pretty low bar, depending on who's driving, but I guess legally that's a huge deal.
It's a license to scale. It harmonizes rules across Europe, Japan, the UK, and it's compatible with the US self-certification model. This is the boring but essential paperwork that lets you sell a product globally.
Before we move on from tech, I have to mention this wildcard idea that Jeshwant posted about. The user-defined vehicle.
Ah, yes. The idea of telling your AI to, Tune my suspension for rush hour traffic?
Exactly. Or, hey car, make the brakes more aggressive because I'm late. It sounds cool, but the liability questions are just insane.
Oh, completely. If I tell the AI to change the suspension and then I crash, is it my fault, the AI's fault, the manufacturer's?
The corporate lawyers would have a heart attack before that ever shipped.
I think so. But it shows where people's imagination is going. People want the car to adapt to them, not the other way around.
True. But let's snap back to reality. We've talked software orgs, we've talked AI trust. Let's look at the scoreboard now. Because while the tech is advancing, the sales charts for weeks 5 and 6 look turbulent.
Turbulent is a polite way to put it. For some players, it's more like crashing. We got some hard numbers from Peter Knapp and Matthias Schmidt about the start of 2026.
Let's start with the big one, Tesla.
It's rough. In Europe, Tesla's sales were down 44% in January. And in Norway, which is usually the EV capital of the world, they were down 88%.
88%. That isn't a slump, that's a collapse. Is it just that the Model Y is getting old?
That's part of it. The lineup is aging. But Schmidt explicitly cited CEO political contagion. He's arguing that Musk's political activities are actively alienating a key demographic of buyers in Europe.
So the brand is taking a hit because of the persona.
It seems so. It's a heavy price to pay for social media engagement. But it wasn't just Tesla. BYD took a hit, too.
Right, they were down about 30%.
Yes, but that seems to be largely due to subsidy cuts. It just shows how sensitive these markets still are to government cash. You take away the incentive, the demand curve just drops off a cliff.
And yet there was one company popping champagne in the middle of all this.
Waymo.
Their valuation tripled to $126 billion.
And they're planning expansions in Tokyo and London. It's really a tale of two markets. Consumer EV sales are wobbling because of price and politics. But the robotaxi model selling miles, not cars, is proving its economics to investors.
There's also a cultural divide that might explain some of the pain for European manufacturers. Philip Rash shared some stats on tech acceptance.
Ah, yes, the Germany versus Asia split.
Exactly. He noted that only 33% of Germans like the idea of a lot of software in cars. Compare that to 84% of people in India.
That is a massive strategic trap for German OEMs, isn't it? Their home market, the people they talk to in Munich, actively rejects the very technology that the rest of the world is demanding.
So if you only listen to your neighbors, you end up building a car that fails in Shanghai.
Pretty much. You're designing for skeptics while all the growth is coming from the enthusiasts.
Speaking of Shanghai, the geopolitics of all this are being flipped on their head. Özgür Nurettin discussed the new globalization. This Ford and Geely news is, well, it's historic.
It really is. We're hearing talks about Ford using its European plants to build vehicles that are based on Geely technology.
Just think about that for a second. For 30 years, the model was Western technology, manufactured in Eastern factories to save on cost.
And now it's Western manufacturing assets. The factories, the unions, the infrastructure building cars using Chinese intellectual property, Chinese technology.
A total reversal.
It's a survival strategy. As Puskul puts it, the tech leadership is coming from China, but the physical assets are still in the West. So partnering is the only way to bypass tariffs and close that tech gap quickly. It's an admission that the tech part of the car is no longer a Western-dominated field.
It is humbling. But I want to end on a reality check from H. Manguino. Because all this talk about software, AI, brand politics, eventually it comes down to physics.
Yes, the Texas Instruments earnings.
TI's revenue is up. And Manguino's point is that this is a great proxy for what's actually happening on the ground.
Because SDVs need, as he put it, a brutal amount of physical infrastructure. We're talking about power management chips, physical layer chips. You can't software define a car on vibes.
You need silicon.
You need silicon.
Yeah.
And if TI is selling more automotive chips, it means the fundamental shift is real, regardless whether Tesla had a bad month. The physical plumbing of the entire industry is being upgraded.
And speaking of plumbing, we have to mention connectivity. Jenny Lindholm and Magnus Leonhardt posted about the tests with Scania, Telia, and Ericsson.
The 5G corridors. We often think of 5G as just fast internet for my phone, but for autonomous freight, it's critical safety infrastructure.
This is for the big trucks, right?
Exactly. If you have a self-driving truck, it needs to be able to talk to the cloud with practically zero latency. They're testing this in Sweden now. It's just another piece of that iceberg we talked about. You can't have the autonomous truck without the invisible network supporting it.
So if we pull all of this together, from the organizational struggles to the AI trust gap to the market reshuffling, what's the big headline for you this week?
For me, it's that the industry has finally realized that software-defined isn't a feature you buy off a shelf, it's a way you exist. And existing that way is painful. You can't just hire a few coders and keep being a traditional car company. You have to change everything, your org chart, your validation methods, even who you partner with globally.
The dreaming phase is definitely over. Now they actually have to make it work, make it safe, and find a way to sell it to a public that is, still very skeptical.
And do all of that while competing with the Chinese industry that is moving 30% faster. It's going to be a very, very long year.
Well, we'll be here to track it. If you enjoyed this episode, new episodes drop every 2 weeks. Also, check out our other editions on electrification and battery technology, future mobility and market evolution, and commercial fleet insights.
Thanks for listening.
Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. See you in the next Deep Dive.